Is the mainstream media down on the Miami Dolphins offense, and do they expect them to regress in 2025? It sure seems that way, so we will talk about it. Also, well, ESPN, and they're at it again with their rankings, and quite frankly, Sieler got disrespected, maybe even more than Devon Achane, given the production he had last year without Christian Wilkins. We will talk about all of that, plus much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score!
Field on the near side, man open. Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. It's going up for the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Appreciate all of y'all coming through for this. Now, before we get into things, I do have a couple things to say. If you haven't had a chance, please go watch yesterday's episode with Warren Sharp. All right, fantastic episode, fantastic amount of information fed to you guys. And also, there is a promo code in that video in the description. You go use that promo code, you'll get his $35 draft guide for only $1 because you're watching this channel. All right, so you make sure you go over and you check out that video from yesterday. Tell you, Warren Sharp, when it comes to analytics, one of the best in the business. And for the people that did watch it, the feedback has been absolutely tremendous. I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the channel and that show. So let's continue it going. This Sunday, I will drop my first training camp preview video. We'll be previewing the offense. Yes, I will have all 22 as well as prospect profiles of Jonah Savaianaya, as well as Ollie Gordon and Quinn Ewers, all right? Then the following weekend, I will drop the defense and special teams preview, and we'll be doing Kenneth Grant amongst a few others, including Dante Trader Jr. when it comes to the all-22 and the prospect profile. So I need you to show up and show out for that, and if you can, donate to those videos when we are live, because those will definitely get demonetized due to the all-22 I'll be using. So I appreciate all of you for the support so far, and we'll be getting a lot more into training camp oriented videos throughout next week, starting next week, right? So I'm not going to start it like 2 or 3 weeks, there's no point in starting training camp videos in in June, a month before we even get there. Even the first week of July, there's really no point because you're still like 3 weeks away. So we'll start ramping up the training camp specific videos as we start to get closer, because it's only about 2 weeks away, a little over 2 weeks away. And just do not forget, I will be on vacation from the 2nd to the 9th, and then I'll be back for the Dolphins opening game of the preseason. We'll be live reacting to that, but I will be away for that week period because it is my 10-year wedding anniversary. So yeah, usually I don't go away during training camp, but hey man, it is what it is this time around. And then don't forget, if you want to meet me, August 19th and 20th, I will be at training camp, and then I will be there on the 21st for the joint practice with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'll be down in the Miami area for, from the 18th to the 22nd, basically. So there you guys go. All right. Now, let's get into a few things here. Number one, you already know what time it is. We got to tell y'all what it is. It is the sponsor of this video. And the sponsor of today's video is Clean the World. All right. Clean the World works with over 8,300 hospitality partners to divert their soap bars, plastic amenities from landfills, and recycle the collected soap into new bars. By doing so, Clean the World helps reduce pollution, save water, and decrease the carbon footprint of thousands of hotels globally, while helping improve the lives of women, children, and communities. Since it was established in 2009, Clean the World has distributed over 80 million bars of soap. The organization has also diverted 9 million pounds of plastic amenity bottles and over 29 million pounds of total waste from landfills, and helped Clean the World Foundation provide an estimated 17 billion individual hand washes to those in need across the globe. By recycling soap and other discarded hygiene products, Clean the World saves lives with items that traditionally end up in landfills. You can donate or even volunteer to help Clean the World's cause at cleantheworld.org. That's cleantheworld.org. All right, and I know I always say it, but if there is ever one sponsor you're going to fully support through, Clean the World should be the one. All right, doing great things over there. So let's continue and let's get into a few talking points. First of all, shout out to the homie Ricky. You know, we support the dog over here. That's my homie Ricky. He's a good dude. You know, he's got my back definitely in this, in this community. So I'm a big fan of Ricky. If you didn't see, Ricky had some interesting things today. Now, he said Aiden Hutchinson, he got a new deal coming up. Check this one out, Dolphin fans. All right? For those who watch the AFC East. Do you know what Ricky was reporting? Ricky was reporting that Sauce Gardner is expected to become the highest paid cornerback as the Jets are pushing to get an extension done during training camp. Sauce Gardner is going to be the highest paid corner in the NFL. Like, wow. I mean, Sauce, yeah, exactly, pro special. He's getting $1 million for every hold he's had as a pro. So they're going to give him $100 million. Like, I think that's, I don't think, does anyone here think Sauce Gardner is the best corner in football? Does anyone think that? Because I know I don't. I'd take Surtain over him. I'm taking Trent McDuffie over him. I mean, like, I might even be taking a young Derek Stingley in Houston over him. Jalen Johnson from the Chicago Bears, he doesn't get enough love. I think he needs to be up there. I don't know, man. Maybe we're just desensitized to him because we see him so often. But, now, do I think he's top 5? Do I think he's top 10? I think he's top 10. I do think Surtain, I do think McDuffie, I do think Jalen Johnson and Stingley are better than him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I would take Marlon Humphrey at this stage of his career at him. Obviously I wouldn't take Denzel Ward over him. I don't know. I think people are really sleeping on Christian Gonzalez. He doesn't get enough love. You'd probably take him. I think people are forgetting how good Tariq Woolen is too. But man, that's hey, enjoy that one. All right. I saw some ESPN guy from Hartford say, "Oh, you got to respect the Jets because, and he started off with, he's talking about he started off saying Justin Fields is an elite quarterback." I said, in what planet is Justin Fields elite at throwing the football? Like, are we serious right now? Like, I was like, this is new levels of delusion for Jets Twitter. Listen, let me tell you this. If Justin Fields is elite, end the discussion right now, because Tua Tagovailoa's already got a gold jacket, all right? He's already destined for Canton if you want to sit here and call Justin Fields elite. All right? Please. All right? When I saw that, I was like, this is just, ugh. And then, speaking to all of you, I had a Patreon update. All right. Go check that Patreon update out. We talked about a few things. We talked about some more details on Minkah's first departure during the Flores era, as well as I told you guys some more details into what I heard about the Cowboys offering 1-for-1 swaps for Jalen Ramsey. And I discussed a tight end target that the Miami Dolphins checked in on while the Jonnu Smith stuff was going on, that they were looking to acquire from the Ravens. And it wasn't Isaiah Likely. I'll tell you that much. If you want to know who it was, go over, become a patron, become a channel member. Michelle, shout out to the homie Michelle Migliardi. She just donated 5 Phinside memberships. So Ryan Neff, Topinga's top 1/3, Big Merc, Coke Master D, Dana Boyce, or sorry if I butchered that, Dana Boyce. Go check that. All right. If you're a channel member, you can go see the written version. If you're a Patreon, you get the video version. Go check that out. You can see right there who I heard the Miami Dolphins were looking to target at tight end. All right. You should go check that out, because in that report, I said that they were told, like, Isaiah Likely, it's not happening. We're not moving him, etc., etc. Well, sticking with Ricky here for a second, he said that the Ravens have made an extension offer to Isaiah Likely at $13 million per year. I told all y'all in that Patreon and channel member report that Likely was off limits, huh? And here you go. They're offering Isaiah Likely $13 million a year. $13 million a year. All right? Unbelievable. I mean, it's believable, but, unbelievable amount that they're willing, And, I didn't talk about this in the report, but I'll tell you guys this. Well, I did actually mention this in the report. When it comes to a guy like Mark Andrews, he could be gone as early as next offseason, from what I understand. So Mark Andrews will be probably a free agent next offseason. Now, will the Dolphins win enough games that the regime sticks around to even make a run at him? I don't know, but go check that Patreon and that channel member report out to see who they were targeting at tight end, all right? And while you're here, smash that like button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always know when we go live. Another interesting thing, too, we covered a couple days ago was about the whole collusion thing, about the NFL and PA and the NFL all over Lamar and all these contracts and stuff, right? And, now it's all coming out that the NFLPA and the NFL agreed to keep collusion findings secret. And now what's happening is the NFLPA members of players are starting to look at the NFLPA funny, and they want basically a reshuffle by the NFLPA. So, like, this is, because you got a CBA in a couple years. I mean, now the players are looking at who represents them and being like, yo, you're not on our side. You guys are helping the NFL collude. I think it's kind of crazy. I think it's nuts how this is gonna blow up. I don't know how this union, I don't know how the head of the union remains. I don't see any world in which Lloyd Howell Jr., he's the executive director. How could this guy stick around? How could all these people in the union stick around? Like, and apparently the union last month hired a lawyer from the law firm of Wilmer Hale to work with a special committee of players to review Lloyd Howell, the head of the union. They're basically reviewing his activities as the executive director. So, I mean, this is kind of nuts how this thing is. I mean, this just shows you, man, this is just a piece of the world, man. Like, this is just, a small capsule of what really goes on. Even the ones who are hired and being paid millions to protect you, you don't know if they have your best interests in mind. And imagine if you're an NFL player, how you're feeling looking at this union right now. You basically need to blow it up. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. That Oos Reeves, what's up with the Kyle Pitt rumors to the Finns? I don't know where you're hearing that or who's saying that, but don't buy into them. You know, Kyle Pitts is going to be a free agent, and he's going to command more money than they're going to be willing to spend at the position, number one. Number two, they just got rid of Jonnu, and they only brought in a similar type of F slot option who can play some in line. Why? Because he was so cheap. Right? Like, they ain't getting Kyle Pitts for the money they're paying Darren Waller, which is like up to $5 million. So, you know, I don't see the Kyle Pitts thing happening unless Kyle Pitts, you know, gets extremely lowballed in the in the free agent market next offseason and they swoop in. But I don't. Again, that Oos, you are a I believe I see the wrench next to your name, so you're a moderator here. Go over right on the YouTube page and go check the tight end that I said they're targeting, because he might be a free agent next offseason if he doesn't get extended. That seems more like a realistic target. Shout out to Michelle. She's been a member for 39 months. I hope to see you at training camp, Michelle. I'll be there the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st. She says, happy 10th anniversary, Reason. I appreciate that, Michelle. Not quite yet. August 1st is our 10-year wedding anniversary. Been together for 13, married for 10. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on right now. So, all right, let's start things off here. And, you know, this is going to be a lot of stuff from ESPN here because we got a few things that they put out we got to talk about. So does the mainstream media seem to think that we are going to regress? I mean, for those of you who watched my, episode with Warren Sharp yesterday, again, I implore you to go watch it. There's a promo code in there to get you his $30 season preview. It's 586 pages. And it's very much so in depth. It's unbelievable. You can get it for $1 if you go watch that show and go use a promo code. All right. So, the mainstream media thinks this offense is going to regress, and we've seen. Listen, if you've been on X, you've been on Instagram, wherever, you've seen like the top 10 wide receiver duo list come out. You've seen the top 10 quarterback receiver duo list come out. And we covered a few of them here. The Dolphins have been steadily dropping, right? Tua and Tyreek have dropped. Waddle and Tyreek have dropped in all of these rankings because, quite frankly, we didn't live up to the high expectations a lot of the media had for us last season. Well, it is continuing right here. And Bill Barnwell, he put out an article ranking the NFL wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, running back groups for 2025. All right. So, in ranking these, this is what he said in his article. All right. He said, it's a playmaker rankings time. Each summer, I run through the NFL and sort each team's rushers and pass catchers to see which teams have given their quarterback the best playmakers at running back, wide receiver, and tight end heading into the season. Playmakers aren't everything, but as the Eagles showed in 2024, teams can absolutely overwhelm defenses if they have multiple superstars capable of taking a pass or a run to the house on any given snap. Now, there's an important distinction to make here. These are not rankings of the league's best offenses. These are the best sets of playmakers where I'm trying to separate the production of running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends from the quarterbacks, offensive lines, and coaching staffs with which they play. Think about the question this way. If every team had a league average quarterback, offensive line, and play caller, along with average luck in a given season, who would have the NFL's best offense in 2025? To figure that out, I tried to use advanced metrics, adjusting for elements such as pace and opportunity to see how players performed on a snap-by-snap basis. It's a lot easier for a wide receiver to rack up yards playing with Joe Burrow and running 35 routes per game than it is to thrive with 20 routes per game and the likes of Mac Jones throwing passes on a regular basis. Jamar Chase is a transcendent scheme independent superstar. It's not easy to make the same case for, say, Mike Gesicki or Andre Osvias. So this is, and he also said this is only about 2025 on-field performance. All right, so he says he's leaving out long-term projections. He's saying injury histories and suspensions matter. Wide receivers are weighted more heavily than running backs or tight ends. All right. So, and he gets into all that. So, anyways, where does he have the Miami Dolphins? 10th. In 2023, we were 8th. In 2024, we were 3rd. We've dropped a full 7 spots. We've dropped out of the top 3 to the last team in the top 10. And they said it shouldn't be a surprise to see the Dolphins fall down these rankings. It's just about everybody who stood out for them in 2023 disappointed last season. Tyreek Hill, coming off one of the best wide receiver seasons ever, saw his cumulative receiving yardage total fall from 1,799 yards to 959 yards. While he was bothered by a wrist injury, he was devastatingly explosive wideout didn't have a single reception of more than 30 yards after a touchdown in the opening week win over the Jags. It seems foolish to write him off for so many years with significant production. Perhaps the 31-year-old is finally slowing down. The big plays were also missing from the running game, where Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert went from 7 runs of more than 30 yards to just 3, all of which came from Achane. Miami's backs went from ranking 1st in rushing yards over expectation in 2023 to 32nd, reversing the climb they accomplished between 2022 and 2023. Mostert is gone now, and while Achane was a far more productive back with Tagovailoa in the lineup, these are supposed to be quarterback independent rankings. Wideout Jalen Waddle's numbers fell off by more than 250 receiving yards for the second consecutive campaign, and after averaging a league high 18.1 yards per catch in 2022, he was down to 12.8 yards per catch a year ago. Miami's lone season to exceed expectations came from tight end Jonnu Smith, but the Dolphins traded Smith to the Steelers and replaced him with unretired Darren Waller, whose last healthy significant season came in 2020. It's a wildly exciting group of playmakers when Tagovailoa is healthy and Coach McDaniel is in his bag. But last season showed how underwhelming these players can be when the conditions aren't right. See, but isn't he kind of contradicting his whole point, right? At the end of it, he talked about when the conditions aren't right. Aren't the conditions by this whole projection that everyone has a average quarterback, everyone has an average offensive line, and everyone has an average coaching staff? Aren't we playing that game? Because here's the thing. All of that lack of production, I mean, what did it come from? Right? It's not like they had Tua Tagovailoa all season and you can just say, well, you know, they really took a step back because they didn't have their guy. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing. This now changes everything. If we all have average coaching staff, so then, okay, we don't have as complicated, as complex of a scheme as what we have right now. So therefore, throw the narrative that, you know, no one can run this offense quite like Tua can out the window. Because that means that an average quarterback can walk in and basically run that average, you know, offense. So, I don't know if I necessarily believe this, because also, give us an average offensive line. What's the average? 15, 16? Where were we? Like 26, 27th? You know, like, just for an example right now, Pro Football Network, they they put out their like running back rankings, and like look at how low we were on that. Sorry, on offensive line rankings. We were super low on that. And why do you think that is? The reason is, I mean, they ranked us, 27th? So, again, you're kind of throwing your context out the window, because Achane and the receivers numbers really impacted the backup quarterback play were impacted by the backup quarterback play because of the backup quarterback play being impacted by the scheme and the offensive line. I mean, Skylar Thompson got hurt because of the offensive line, right? I mean, I can make the argument that give this running back room an average offensive line last year, and Achane's numbers are better. Mostert numbers with his opportunities are better. Jalen Wright's not running for his life behind the line of scrimmage. I wish we would have had average, because that interior with Eichenberg and Jones, as much as Aaron Brewer tried to prop it up, was below average because of those two. Two of your three linchpins on the interior were weak links. Then you had Taron Armstead in the rotating door with Taron Armstead out, and Patrick Paul really only had some good snaps against the Texans. Then look at the right side. Jackson goes down. Man, Austin Jackson goes down. We had to play Jackson Carman. Okay? No average offensive line is starting Jackson Carman in the NFL. Let me tell you that. So, if you're going to take this from an average, you should actually probably I could make the argument, especially the running back room, you should probably raise our playmakers' value a little bit here. Right? Because it all starts with the offensive line. I mean, look at the end of the season. The hip pointer injury that ended Tua's season was on the offensive line. The concussions were not on the offensive line. But that hip pointer that he got at the end of the season was on the offensive line. And Huntley was bad, other than when he faced the worst quarterback in the NFL in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But he was bad. So if you're going to give me average play, quarterback play, I mean, yeah, is Tua average? No. So we're down tick from there. But average quarterback play was better than what we got from our backups last year when Tua was out. So, I'm just saying, like, if we're going to, rank these guys independent of the offensive line and their coaching staff, and I mean, okay, let's go even further. All right? Let's go even further. Would you call Mike McDaniel below average or average with his time management? Would you call him below average or average with his ability to challenge plays? Would you call him average or below average as a play caller when he gets in the red zone? Would you call Mike McDaniel average or below average when this team is losing by more than one score? Would you call Mike McDaniel below average or average with his personnel grouping decisions in the red zone, i.e., against the Green Bay Packers when Tua was about to bring us within one score and he decides to take Tyreek, Waddle, and Jonnu Smith off the field and throws a bunch of jabronis out there on third down. Go get them, guys. Like, I can sit here and nitpick certain things that we can all say are either below average or bad when it comes to Mike McDaniel and certain coaching tendencies. I mean, especially in situations that matter. I mean, is Mike McDaniel average or below average with understanding how to balance a run game and a passing attack? We all pull our hairs out, because he just at times doesn't know when to pass and when to run the ball. And it ends up we either get stuffed or he does stupid things like the personnel groupings where he drops to a back to pass and it's dead to rights. So, like, that's the thing here. So, again, all those situations that I just named, if we got average, we probably would have had more wins. Let's be honest here. Even without Tua. If we would have got average quarterback plays and at least average coaching in those situations I just listed off, probably would have got another win or two last year, huh? Just saying. So, are we really keeping our playmakers independent of that? Because, as I'm sitting here listing it, between coaching and the offensive line, they've been detrimental to our playmakers and our quarterback. For being below average or downright bad in certain situations. Shout out to Scorpion King. He says, congrats on 10 years, Reason. Appreciate you, sir. 10 years, August 1st, my friend. So, okay. Now, let's get this straight, though. I agree. You know, a perfect example I can give you is the last 2 minutes of the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl loss to the New England Patriots, right? Terrell Owens' year there. 110%. I can agree with that. But brother, did he or did he not go to 4 NFC championships? You know? Like, and a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Did he or did he not always give them a stout offensive line? You know? Remember, I used to watch the Eagles heavily in the early 2000s because they had a couple players I loved. I loved Donovan McNabb, and everyone knows I loved me some Brian Dawkins. You know? Andy Reid really helped build the foundation and the blueprint of what they've continued to build off in regards to the trenches on both sides in Philadelphia. Right? They used a lot of the roster building blueprint that Andy Reid and his staff had over there, and they made it a part of the culture that's lasted and continued on, and that Howie Roseman and company have continued to build off. Right? Look at when Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, they were still using that offensive line blueprint that Andy Reid has instilled. Look at them now. They're still using that offensive and really defensive line blueprint that him and his staff instilled. So that's the thing. Like, if McDaniel leaves tomorrow, are there going to be any foundational changes to this team that really worked and are going to be made a part of the identity of this team moving forward, even without him, that they're going to continue with other regimes? I venture to say no. You know, that's how you can tell the impact, the long-lasting impact of a coach even after they're gone, is if they continue to use certain things from that coach's blueprint of roster building and construction even after he's gone. And you can make the case the Philadelphia Eagles continued to use Andy Reid. I'm an Andy Reid guy, you know, I'm a huge Andy Reid guy. I think he's the best coach in the NFL, and I have. You know, I have always thought that. So, it is what it is. Anyways, so let's continue going on here because we're not done. I mean, look at what Chris Canty said about the Miami Dolphins. I'm telling you, the expectations in the media are low. In the mainstream media, they are low. All right? Check this out.
It's time, right? They've been there long enough to establish their program. Mm-hmm. They've invested in Tua. They gave him the contract. They committed to him, even though he had only one full season healthy, no playoff wins to show for it. It's time for Mike McDaniels to show that this way of playing football can have success when it matters most in the NFL. This philosophy of pace and space, similar to what we talk about with NBA teams,
right,
playing basketball on grass, you have to show that ends up leading to being able to have success once you get into the playoffs, being able to consistently get to the postseason. And so I am skeptical of whether or not they're going to be able to do that. Again, I struggle to have faith in the Miami Dolphins because what I've seen, you know, you have to look at the context. You have to look at the history around it. You have an oft-injured quarterback in a style of play that doesn't necessarily lend itself to being able to have success against the better teams.
Okay, so I'm not a huge Chris Canty fan. I think he's been a pretty egregious hater of the Miami Dolphins the past couple years. But I do agree with a lot that he said there. It's time for McDaniel to prove that this scheme can work in the NFL in the months that matter, not just in the warm months. You know, you got to start. And now, what is he saying, right? Like, he's kind of talking about how, you know, like, here's where I'm at with it and what he's saying. If you listen to what he said, I mean, you know, when he talked about pace and space in the NBA team, it's like, in football terms, it's look at around us. We're the only team trying to be a top dog in the AFC that built offensively from the outside in. Right? That's basically how we built ourselves. From the outside in. We didn't build from the inside out. Remember, the Kansas City Chiefs were kind of built outside in. And what did they decide to do? They traded Tyreek, and they've been spending a lot more resources trying to upgrade the offensive line. Right? They started building inside out. The Bills got rid of Stephon Diggs, focused on James Cook and solidifying that run line. That offensive line and that run game, building from the inside out. Right? When you're building a power run team or a run team, you're building from the inside out. And, you know, that's why we're stuck with, not only because it's, you know, a Shanahan signature with the outside zone, but that's why we run the outside zone, is because we want speed and athleticism everywhere, even on our offensive linemen, so they can get out of their kick slides and into space, whether it be the second level or out on a screen, whatever the case may be. They can get there quick enough, and they can make it happen off the edge because they're fast and they're supposed to be quick, nimble, athletic, and strong. That's what we're basically looking for, right? So, you know, I've talked about this, you know, so I do agree with what he's saying. I mean, you have got to figure this out. This offense was not made for Tua. I mean, I don't know who said that. This offense was not made for Tua. Again, I mean, do people not pay attention? Why do you think Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan, when they're in San Francisco, before they decided to trade up for Trey Lance, they were sniffing around Tua Tagovailoa? Guys, Tua Tagovailoa's skill set is built for West Coast offenses in general. What are West Coast offenses based on? Quick timing, rhythm, throws. Going a lot more horizontal than vertical. That's why everyone was shocked when we added the vertical threats. Like, again, you got to understand what players do well, what do best, and then certain schemes that will highlight them. This is why he wasn't great in Chan Gailey's ISO offense. Because it was just something, A, he had never run up until that point, and B, it just doesn't work to his skill set the best. West Coast offenses, he is the ideal West Coast offense quarterback. Drew Brees was an ideal West Coast offense quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Tua's Montana by any stretch of the imagination, but go back and watch Montana and what he was doing in the West Coast offenses. So no, this offense, what people don't understand here is this offense would have been here whether Tua was here or not. This is Mike McDaniel's vision and his version of Kyle Shanahan's offense. So no, it wasn't built specifically for Tua. This would have been here either way with Mike McDaniel. What do you think? Mike McDaniel just would have totally went off course and, you know, totally went away from the offense he'd been in all his time, whether it was under Mike or Kyle? Go watch the quarterback show. They just released the new season of quarterback. Kirk Cousins is in it. Kirk Cousins talks about how complicated this offense is to run. Because guess what? He ran it in Washington. They actually had to switch up. The only time they've actually built an offense for a quarterback is RG3. If you want to get into facts and technicality, the only time that they have built an offense for a quarterback on the Shanahan tree is RG3. Because all he could do was basically read option. He wasn't a pocket guy. What do you think they had Jake Plummer doing when he was in the Shanahan offense? Go back and watch Jake Plummer in the Shanahan offense. What do you think he was doing? Again, stop listening to people who don't know ball and know how all the nuances of the game work, because clearly they're misguiding you if you're coming into my comment section and asking basic fundamental questions that you should already know the answer to if you know ball. Again, go back and watch Jake Plummer. Matt Ryan. What do you think they did with Matt Ryan under Shanahan? And he had an MVP. He had his best season. Matt Ryan had his best season as an NFL quarterback. Why? Because he was running the same offense. An iteration of it. All Mike did is tweak. What do you think McVay does? Why do you think they went so far with Goff? Come on, man. You got to understand West Coast quarterbacks and what's asked of quarterbacks in West Coast schemes. Tua has elite traits for a West Coast offense. That's it. The quick release, the ability to place the ball, on an absolute dime. Attacking the middle of the field. Why do you think I sat here and told all y'all Quinn Ewers was a fit? Because again, you watch Quinn Ewers play, you see what he does well, and you say, oh yeah, he fits a West Coast scheme. He fits what they ask quarterbacks to do in Miami. Again, you got to watch the film. You got to know what you're looking at. You got to know what you're looking for. You got to know schemes and what they ask of players at specific positions, especially if you're going to evaluate quarterbacks. All right? So, I'm not even just, Bones, I'm not even, coming at you, because I hear, man, you hear this all over the place, bro. And actually, if I remember correctly, Bones, you played ball, so I'm not even really actually talking about you. I'm just generally blanketing just the point you brought up. But you're right, man. Everyone's saying whatever. See, because you're only saying what everyone said last year. You've heard it too. But we need better trenches, 110%. That's the problem. You can't, with any offense, doesn't matter whether it's West Coast, doesn't matter, whether it's an ISO, doesn't matter what it is. All right. You have to have that offense. You have to have that offensive line set. That's just the way it is, right? You can't. This is this is what pisses me off, man. And I always talk about this. Guys, Chris Greer, the blueprint was under your nose with the unicorn line. When you had Brandon Albert, Laramie Tunsil, Pouncey, etc., etc. When you had this line that made Jay Ajayi a stud, and we all saw what did it do? It elevated Jay Ajayi to the point we got great picks from the Eagles, and he was better than anything he was after that. And look at Tannehill had his best season. And I really think if Tannehill would have stayed healthy, we would have probably beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in that first round playoffs. But it was right under your nose, Chris. That's like your employer coming across your face and slapping you with a glove and, telling and saying, yo, you figured it out. You figured it out. I'm talking like a wake-up call. You're working on something. You're working on a project. You figure it out. Boss comes, slaps you in the face with a glove. Look, you figured it out. Like a hard wake-up call. And what do? The next time you get a similar project, you go about it a totally different way. Look at Bill Belichick, right? They ran the Earhart-Perkins offense, and they never sacrificed the offensive line, especially when Dante Scarnecchia was there. Right? You know? It's crazy. You know? Exactly. Alf comes through. He says Kirk Cousins also admitted to screwing up the offense in its operation. But yeah, this offense is easy to run. No, man, it's listen, I try to tell people it's complicated, right? And then the cop out for some people as well, it was only built for Tua to run. Okay. So you're telling me we're the only team in the existence of the NFL, in the history of the NFL, that has built an offense specifically for the quarterback that no other quarterback can run because we've made it, so intricate that only Tua understands it? Like, I can't believe people actually believe this. I can't believe, people actually run with that. Like, that is such a stupid narrative. No, it's, guess what? Because all those same people were the ones who were harping on Tua for his Wonderlic score and calling him, an idiot and all this stuff. But now they're the ones that look like an idiot for not understanding the offense. And here's the thing. Surprise, surprise. Tua's not an idiot. Tua's got it up here. Tua's a fantastic processor. Tua's a very smart individual. I'm just saying, Tyler Huntley got here and said, the reason why it took him a couple of weeks to even be able to, start taking real reps was because how complicated it was. And he's been in how many offenses, right? Teddy Bridgewater. I talk about Teddy Bridgewater. Dude, the guy under Sean Payton, when he came in for Drew Brees, do people forget how good Teddy Bridgewater was with the Saints when he came in relief for Drew Brees? Do people forget how this guy bounced around the league? What, all of a sudden, he just was inadequate when he came here? It's because it just didn't click with him. The light didn't go on. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But like I said, this is why they drafted a guy like Quinn Ewers, because he does a lot of the things that Tua does well. So, anyways. All right. I just, I don't know. But I do agree with Canty that this is, we got to start proving that this offense can. I don't think it's so much scheme. I think it's you got to prove your roster construction and your roster build can work in December and January, because you haven't proven that yet, especially offensively. So now, to Bones' point, if you fix the offensive line like he suggested, how you got to fix it, if you get some nasty guys in there, you can start winning in December and January. And I think Jonas Savaianaya and James Daniels, if he looks like the guy he was before the Achilles injury, that's a good start of fixing this. We all know Tua's got to stay healthy, but so does Austin Jackson. Austin Jackson's hurt more than Tua. And we're on the hook for this guy because they restructured his contract. We're on the hook for $16 million next year. So, that guy's... Austin Jackson needs to stay healthy too. Just like Jalen Phillips on the other side. So, and like I said, man, I saw someone in the chat said it. We're one injury away from this offensive line. I agree. I've talked about this. I would be signing whoever's out there and just making them battle. When I hear Liam Eichenberg is our best depth guy right now, I cringe. That would, if I was the GM and that got relayed back to me by the coaching staff, or I read that in the media, you know what I'd do? I'd pick up the phone and call Will Hernandez and say, hey, how much do you need? Because that's a scary thought. People try to spin that like it's a positive. No, we've seen this kid play. That's not a positive. All right. Now, Tua Tagovailoa. Speaking of Tua, The Athletic had an article about players' contracts and all this kind of jazz, and this is what they said. They said there's a world where this is Tua Tagovailoa's final season in Miami. To be clear, the odds of the Dolphins moving on after the season are remote, but it's not maybe as crazy as you think. Imagine if the up against the cap Dolphins struggle to a 5 or 6 win 2025 season. Ownership decides it's time for a hard reset, and the new GM and coach don't see Tagovailoa. With his concussion history and limitations as a pocket passer, as a franchise quarterback, they decide to draft a quarterback and look to trade Tagovailoa to QB needy room. His value would depend on his health and how he plays this year. But for the record, simply cutting him after the season would come with a $79 million cap hit. That's a lot, but it wouldn't even be the NFL record. So this was written by Jim Aiello. Well, I can, there's a world where Jim Aiello, gets fired for writing bad content. But, okay, so he's kind of right and he's kind of lost. Let's talk about where he's lost. Limitations as a pocket passer. Newsflash, when Tua is healthy, he's arguably the best pocket passer in the NFL. Where the limitations for Tua is out of structure. Even still, I've made this argument. Go back and watch the Baltimore Ravens game. Go back. There's a ton of touchdowns to Waddle where Tua shows some wiggle and makes a throw. There's a ton of plays where Tua, you see it all the time, where he does his little backspin off of an incoming rusher, gets on the move and makes a play. But he'll never be confused for a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen, or, he doesn't have as much wiggle as a guy like, Joe Burrow even, whatever. But, limitations as a pocket passer, don't know about that. Athletic limitations and out of structure limitations, okay, we can maybe have a discussion. But even still, I think the out of structure limitations are overblown. Where the limitations come are, this nice guy's not going to break off a 20, 30, 40-yard touchdown run. He's not going to make multiple defenders miss. He'll make one defender miss, or, against the Jets, he'll run through a defender, and you say your 3 Hail Marys and pray that he protects himself. But, as a pocket passer, Tua's a better pocket passer than Lamar Jackson. What are we talking about here? Last year, I can make the argument Patrick Mahomes was a worse pocket passer than Tua. Patrick Mahomes actually, if you dive into the analytics and the statistics, had one of his worst pocket passing seasons of his career. When you talk about pocket passers, I think, Burrow, Tua, Purdy, I think Jaden Daniels is going to climb into that conversation. I think those are the cream of the crop when it comes to pocket passers. I think Goff is up there now, right? Because he's been around. These guys are pocket guys, man. So saying he has limitations as a pocket passer, you're going to lose me with that one. Now, where he is correct is, the odds of the Dolphins moving on after the season are remote. But it's not crazy to think. I would agree with that situation. Tua's ability in the pocket, or let's put it this way, Tua's play on the field is not going to be what drives him out of Miami. It's if Tua can't stay on the field. That's the only thing that would lead to Tua leaving, is if he once again gets hurt. He talked about us winning 5 or 6 games in that article. The only way we're winning 5 or 6 games is if Tua gets hurt. And let me tell you this much. If Tua gets hurt, brother, throw Quinn Ewers to the Wolves and see what you got. Because if you don't got nothing, stick with it and tank for a pick. That's where I'd be. Yeah, everyone knows I'm going to be banging the Lenore Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier train if that happens. And this is a good class, right? You got Klubnik in this. Sam Levitt's coming out. Drew Aller's coming out. It's a good class coming out right now. So, and if you don't want to go quarterback, baby, go pair Caleb Downs with Minkah Fitzpatrick and go field the best safety tandem in the NFL. I'm down either way. But, listen, again, Tua's play is not going to get him driven out of Miami. It's going to be Tua's health. That's it. All right? That's all it is. And like I said, all of you that are saying, I told you he was coming out of college, he couldn't stay healthy. Yeah, you told us that because of his hip, he wasn't going to be able to stay healthy. None of y'all, no one in this world, let alone this community, foresaw a concussion issue as being what could keep Tua Tagovailoa out of games, on the sideline, and potentially be what the driving force for him leaving Miami. No one saw that. So I just had to say that real quick, right? Now, quickly here. Just the disrespect, man. The disrespect, all right? The disrespect from ESPN, all right? They went ahead and Zach Sieler made the honorable mentions. Christian Wilkins, the guy who got hurt last year and who looks like he's not coming back from the injury any sooner, is higher than Zach Sieler. Said Zach Sieler, he's probably getting more credit for his 2024 performance because Christian Wilkins wasn't there. He's worked himself into an all-pro caliber player, tough, smart, dependable. He should have been getting this credit when Christian Wilkins was here. You need to extend this man. But I'm going to tell you this much. You go look at this. I'm sorry, man. I'm taking him over Cam Hayward. You know, I'm taking him right now over where Vita Vea is at. I'm taking him. I mean, listen, I could make the argument I would take him over Matabuki right now. You know, Zach Sieler is a top 5 defensive tackle in this league. And for him to only get an honorable mention is absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. All right. And then we had no edges ranked. None of our edges made honorable mentions or the top 10. So Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. And then when it came to them ranking safeties, Minkah finished 9th. Last year he was 4th, so he fell 5 spots. So one executive said he was the best in the NFL for years, but is slowing down. And one said he still has a lot to offer. Incredibly hard worker. Tone setter, super solid. Running things on the back end, preventing big plays, things that go unnoticed. I'm expecting a bounce back year for him. Look, someone had him unranked when they did the list. Because remember, this is NFL coaches, executives, and scouts. So, Devon Achane, top 10 running back in the NFL. I made the case, and I stated it pretty well, that he's better than Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara right now. Zach Sieler, come on, man. You look at the guy's top 10 in defensive lineman sacks over the last few years, and that's with good old Christian Wilkins here, right? So, I don't know, man. I don't know. And he was already a stud when Wilkins was here. I mean, you know, this guy's a top 10. I mean, talking about, 23 and a half sacks over the last 3 years. Okay? Let me put that in perspective. All right? Only Max Crosby, DeForest Buckner, Myles Garrett, Carl Granderson, Christian Wilkins. Oh, let me redo that. Only Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby. I mean, only edges have more than him. All right? Like, look at the guys who have more than him. Myles Garrett, edge. Trey Hendrickson, edge. Nick Bosa, edge. Max Crosby, edge. Montez Sweat, edge. And then Matabuki has a sack and a half more than him. But there you go, Zach Sieler, 7th. 23 and a half. That's 7th most sacks amongst all defensive linemen in the last 3 years. Come on, man. He's top 10. And the Dolphins need to extend him. As for Minkah, like I said in my Patreon video, I expect him to bounce back. I expect him to be back to all-pro form. And hey, if they want to guarantee him a little bit of money this year because he has none, just to keep him a little happy, I'm down for it. But Zach Sieler, when you talk about him, I don't even have to get into the pressure numbers. When you talk about, 7th most sacks amongst all defensive linemen in the last 3 years, and 5 of those are edge players, yeah. He's got more sacks than Christian Wilkins. So, show him the love, man. I just don't understand how they can even, I don't know. Okay. In what world? In what world is this man? I'm taking offense to this because this man needs to stop being overlooked. Like, let's be real here. All right? Like, let's be real here for a sec. You need to stop overlooking this guy and the greatness he's becoming. Zach Sieler, man, if there's one player on this roster right now I'm praying retires a Dolphin and they take care of him, it is him, 110%. 110%. So, I mean, the guy had 46 pressures last year, too. Unbelievable stuff. And you look at his impact against the run game, Zach Sieler's a top 10 in the league. Guys, over 300 of you in the chat. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Remember, I'll be back at the latest this weekend with my offensive preview with prospect profiles of Quinn Ewers, as well as Jonah Savaianaya and Ollie Gordon, as we'll be obviously previewing how I see the depth chart heading into training camp as well. So we'll be live for that training camp preview. Until next time, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Appreciate everyone who donated. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new on the way out. And, man, I will see each and every one of you on the next one. Love y'all. Have a fantastic